Right now, what we have seen is, okay, I said you about working with the, so okay, fine. So what we are talking about is, okay, I said about object level variables or instance variables. And to create this object level variables or instance variables, we are trying to write one special method within the class. And that special method is called what? Construct. I said the members of the class can be declared as a private, protected, and one more is what? Public. So private, protected, and public are called access modifiers. And access modifiers define the accessibility of members of the class. And private members are prefixed with what here? Double underscore. Okay, private members are prefixed with double underscore. And protected members are prefixed with what? Single underscore. And public members are not prefixed with any underscore. Now this is with the double underscore and this is with the single underscore, but public members are not prefixed with any underscore. See here, I declare this method as a private, but is it accessible outside the class? No. Only public are accessible outside the class. So private members are accessible within class, but cannot accessible where? Outside the class. But public members are accessible within class as well as what? Outside the class. So I said, what is the advantage of encapsulation is data hiding. But how you are achieving this data hiding? By declaring variables inside the class as what here? Private. By declaring variables inside the class as a private, right? How you are achieving this data hiding is by declaring variables inside the class as a private. So suppose, assume that, okay, assume that there is a class A is there. Okay, assume that there is a class A. So within class A, or A is the class or A is the object. And this class is having two variables. One is X, and X is which variable here? Public variable. And there is one more, which is called as which one? Y. And Y is which one here? Private. Okay, so how many object level variables are there? Two are there. How many object level variables are there? Two object level variables. Okay, one is public and one more is what? Private. A is having two variables. One is public and one more is what? Private. So X is a public variable and Y is what here? Private variable. X is a public variable and Y is what here? Private. But privates are not accessible where? Outside. For example, I create object of Which class? A class. Now this you can call it as constructor or not? Yes. So whenever you create an object, your object is created by calling which one? Constructor. So first it will create object of which class? A class. So what is the name of this object here? Object 1. What is the name of the object? Object 1. So here object 1 is created by calling which one here? Constructor. And this constructor is referring to which object here? Object 1. And this object 1 is having how many variables? Two variables. One is x and one more is what? Y. So it allocates memory for how many variables? Two variables. One is x and the value of x is what here? 100. And one more is a y and the value of y is what here? 200. But x is a public and y is what here? Private. Can I access x value of object 1? Yes. Okay, can I access x value of object 1? Yes. I can access x value of object 1 because x is what here? Public. Is it public? Is it accessible outside or not? Yes. But private is not accessible where? Outside. Public is accessible outside, but private is not accessible. If I run this, now you can see the value of x of object 1. Object 1 x value is what? 100. So what will happen? So what will happen if I'm trying to access? What will happen if I'm trying to access which one? Y. Because is it y is a public or private? Private. So immediately it is given what? Object has no attribute called which one? Y. But is it y is there in? Is it y is there or not there? There. But I cannot access this where? Outside. Outside means non-members. It means where I can use a y only within the class. But is it main is there within the class or outside the class? Outside the class. Means it main is a member function or non-member function? Non-member function. Is it main is a member function or non-member function? Non-member function. And non-member function cannot access which data? Private data. Non-member function cannot access which data? Private data. If you are trying to access this obj1.y, immediately it is given which error? There is no attribute called y. But is it any attribute called y is exist or not exist? Exist. But is it accessible outside? No. It is not accessible where? Outside. So that is called as a data hiding, right? That is called as a data hiding. I just put this in comment. And if I run this, there is a value of y, value of x. What is the value of x? 100. But is it able to access value of y? No, because y is declared as what here? Private. So when the data is a private, then how it is accessed? Okay, now when the data is a private, then how this data is accessible? When the data is a private, it is accessible with the help of. When the data is a private, it is accessible with the help of what? Methods. So what is the value of x here? 100. What is the value of x here? 100. You can remove this comment, and if you execute, you'll get what? Error. For example, there's a class. Okay, assume that I want to develop one data type called which one? Student. What is the name of the data type? Student. What is the name of the class here? Student. And student is having some properties. Every student is having how many properties? Assume that every student is having some properties like which one? A roll number. Is it roll number is a private or not? Yes. So self dot. Is it name is a private or not? Yes. Self dot. Is it course is a private or not? Yes. Can I access this roll number, name and course? No. Because when I create a student object, now student object is created. When you create a student object, the student object is created with how many variables? 3 variables. Now student 1 is there. So on creation of object, it will call which one here? Constructor. On creation of object, it will call the constructor. And this constructor hold the address of which object? Student 1 object. And the student 1 is having which one? A roll number. Student 1 is having roll number. And student 1 is having what? Name. And student 1 is having what? Course. But roll number, name, course, all these are what? Private. This data is what here? Private. This data is a private. When the data is a private, is it accessed by non-members? No. When the data is a private, it is not accessed by non-members. If I'm saying student 1 dot, I'm trying to access which one? Roll number. Can I able to access roll number of student 1? No, because roll number of student 1 is what? Private. Roll number of student 1 is a private. Immediately it is given what? Error. Can I access name of the student 1? No. Again it gives what? Error. But is it attribute name is there or not there? There. Is it attribute name is there or not there? There. But are you able to access it? No. Because this roll number, name and course is declared as what here? Private. So private members are not accessible. Ring or not? Private members are not accessible. It means, is it this data is hidden or not? Yes. This data is hidden. Then when the data is hidden, how this hidden data is accessible? When the data is hidden, how this hidden data is accessible with the help of public methods? How it is accessible with the help of public methods? For example, if you take a predefined data type called set is there. Assume that I created one set object. So what is the name of this object? Set 1. Suppose, can I access the data of set 1 directly? No. But how can I manipulate this data with the help of methods? There is a method provided by set. What is that method is provided? Add. Is it add method is public or not? Yes. If I want to add anything in set, I just call which method? Add method. If I want to remove anything from the set, I call which method? Remove method. If I want to add anything into the set, I call which method? Add method. If I want to remove anything from the set, I call which method? Remove method. Getting or not? In the same way, I created list object. If I want to add anything in the list, I use which method? Append method. If I want to remove anything from list, I use which method? Remove method. Using append method, I can add the values to the list. Using remove method, I'll remove the values from list. In the same way, I created student. I want to add the details to the student. I want to read the details of what? Student. Are you provided any method? Are you provided any method to read the details of student? No. See, whenever you develop a class, okay, always you develop a class based on which one? Object. You should know what is your object is. You cannot write a class directly. If you want to write a class, first you should know what is your object. You want to create which object? You want to create which object? I want to create which object? Student object. Student is an object and student is having what properties? Roll number, name and course. And if I want to read the details of the student, I'll provide one method. To print the details of the student, I'll provide one method. If I want to read the details of student, I'll provide one method by using which you read the details of what? Student. I'll provide one method to print the details of what? Student. So whenever you develop a class, you always develop a class to create the object, and you create the object and store what? Data and perform certain operations. Now you should know what is the behavior of object is. Now I read one method. What is the name of this? Read student. Okay. What is the name of this method? Read student. Is it this method is object level method or not? Yes, this is object level method. Object level methods. Object level method. Perform which operation? Object level operation. I said object level variables inside the class. This object level variables bind with what? Self. Read student is a method which will read the details of student. Self dot, what I'm saying, roll number equal to input. Integer of input. Input what? Enter. Input, enter what? Roll number. Self dot, what is that next one? Name. So input, enter. What should enter? Name. Self dot. Next is what here? Course. What I have to enter here? Course. Suppose I want to read. Suppose I want to read the details of student. I want to read the details of student. What will I do? I'll say student one dot. What will I do? Student one dot. What is the method I written? Read student. So what will happen? It will call which method here? Read student. And there is read student is bind with which object? Student one. Self is holding reference of which object? Student one. This is a student one. What student one is having? Student one is having roll number. Student one is having what? Name. And student one is having what? Course. You are reading the roll number, name, and course of which object? Student one. But is a student one can read the roll number, name, and course? No, because roll number, name, course is what? Private. Okay, now I cannot read directly the details of which one? Student, because roll number, name, and roll number, name, and course is what? Private. Then how you access this private data? How you access this private data? You are accessing this private data with the help of which method? Public method. That is called abstraction. Encapsulation is what? Hiding. But abstraction is what? Revealing. Now to operate this object, which method is revealed here? Read student. Now with the help of this read student, you can able to read this data or not? Yes. Okay, now just read student. After read student, I want to print the details of the student. Then I'll write one more method. What is it? Another method? Print student. This is a method which print details of what here? Student. So when you are building your own data type, you should know. You should know because I said no. The main objective of object-oriented programming is building your own data structures. The main objective of object-oriented programming is building your own data structures. You're trying to build your own data structures. You're trying to build your own data types. So when you're building your own data types, okay, you should know what type of data you want to store it and what kind of operations you want to perform it. Suppose roll number, I try to say self dot roll number. So print format. What is this format? Name and self dot name. I said no, where you can access this object level variables inside the class? Only inside which methods? Object level methods. Okay, now format. What you are trying to print here? Course. So self dot. What you are printing here? Course. You are trying to access the roll number. You are trying to access what? Name. You are trying to access what? Course. You are trying to access roll number. You are trying to access name. You are trying to access which one? Course. Then I want to print the details of the student. Student one dot. What you are trying to print here? Student. One is reading the student details and one more is printing the student details. One is reading the student details and one more is printing. You can see enter roll number. Roll number is 101. Name of the student and this is what? Course. This is a roll number and this is a name and this is what here? Course. In the same way, student is a predefined class or user defined? User defined. Then I'm saying list one equal to what? List. Tell me, is it list is a predefined class or user defined? Predefined. We created which object now? List object. Created which object? List object. I want to add the values into the list. How can I add the values into the list? I'll say list one dot. What is that? Append. List one dot append. What you are append? 10. If I want to add one more value, list one dot, what is that? Append. Are you adding values with the help of which method? Append method of which class? List class. Here also you created which object? Student object. Here also you created which object? Student object. And you are trying to add the details into the student object by using which method? Read student. And you are trying to print the details of student by using which method? Print student. One is reading the details and one more is what? Printing the details. One is reading the details of the student by using read student, and you are trying to print the details of the student by using what? Print student. Okay, so when the data is hidden, means I cannot access directly the data, right? Can I access the attributes of the list directly? No, I cannot access the data directly. But how I'm performing the operations on this list with the help of methods provided by which one? List. With the help of methods provided by which one? List only. With the help of methods provided by what? List only. Just to try to understand this. Okay. Yes. So student object is created. And I'll try to run this. Now in this case, I enter roll number, and this is a name, and this is what? Course. And this is a predefined, and this is what here? User defined. So whenever you develop a class, yeah, whenever you develop a class, you always develop a class. To develop a class, what you required is, what is your object is. Until unless you don't know what is your object is, you cannot develop class. Until unless you don't know what is your object is, until unless you don't know what is your object is, you cannot write a class. Until unless you don't know what is your object is, you cannot write a class. You should understand this. Okay, right. Suppose, assume that, suppose, simple example, I'm writing it. So write a program. So here I'm writing when data is private, when data is a private, when data is private, okay, it is accessible, it is accessible within what? Class, but cannot accessible, where? Outside the class, or non members. Cannot accessible outside the class or non members. So in order to access private data, in order to access private data or members outside the class, we use which members? Public methods. We'll use what here? Public methods. That means you are hiding the data by revealing what? Methods. You want to operate that data, you operate it with the help of methods. You want to operate the data, you operate it with the help of what? Methods. List is having data, how you operate it? With the help of methods like append, remove, insert. These are the methods of which one? List. In the same way, student is also having some methods. What are the methods of student? What are the methods of student? Read. Using read method, you are reading the details of what? Student. Using print method, you are trying to print the details of what? Student. But can you access directly the details of student? No, because student data is what? Private. You cannot access directly the student data because student data is what here? Private. You cannot access it. You cannot access it, but you are trying to access it with the help of methods. For example, suppose write a program to find area of which one? Triangle. Very simple, right? Write a program to find area of triangle. So in this example, both the members, private members, public members. Members means, see, when you are saying a members can be okay, members can be data members, or members can be what? Methods. It can be variables, or it can be what here? Methods. It can be anything. So it can be variables or it can be methods. It can be anything. Suppose write a program to find area of triangle. So is it any data type called triangle? Is it any data type called triangle? No. So here assume that triangle is one object. I want to create which object here? Triangle object. But is it any data type called triangle? No. Then what do you do it? You build a data type called which one? Triangle. So what is the name of the class? Triangle. So why we are developing triangle class to create what? Triangle object. So that we can find what? Area. So class is reusable. Means once you create a class, using that class, you can create either one object or more than one object. Once you develop a class, using that class, you can create either one object or more than one object. Now there is I'm trying to define the properties of a triangle. Okay, now this is called which method? Constructor. Constructor is for initializing object or not? Yes. This is a constructor, and using this constructor, I'm defining the initial properties of which one? Object. So triangle is having how many properties? Two properties. One is which one? Base. One is a base. And what is the initial value of base? 0.0. There is the next one. What is the next one? Height. And what is the initial value of height? 0.0. This is called as which variables? Object level variables. And this is also which variable? Object level variable. Object level variable or instance. It is called as instance variable. Object level variable or instance variable. Okay, so object level variables are bind with what? Self. Object level variables, memory is allocated whenever you create an object of what? Class. Object level variables, memory is allocated whenever you create the object of which one? Class. Whenever you create the object of a class, memory is allocated whenever you create object of a class. Getting or not? So you are trying to say self dot base equal to 0.0 and self dot height equal to 0.0, right? Then after that, suppose what will happen? What will happen if I create triangle 1? So what is a triangle here? Class. And what is a triangle 1 here? Object. I created object of which class here? Triangle class. Is it this is a syntax of creating object or not? Yes. So what will happen? Tell me what will happen here? It will create the object. Which object is created here? Triangle 1. What is the name of this object here? Triangle 1. So what will happen on creation of object? Whenever you create the object, your object is created by calling which one? Constructor. And this constructor is having the reference of self means what? Self is holding the address of which object? Current object. Self is referring to which one? Triangle 1. In triangle 1, it look for which variable? Base. Is it base is there or not there? Not there. If it is not there, what will happen? It will create. What is the name of this variable? Base. And what is the base of the triangle 1? 0.0. And underscore, what is the height of the triangle 1? 0.0. What is the base of the triangle 1? 0.0. What is the height of the triangle 1? 0.0. But is it this data which is there in triangle 1? Is it a private or not? Yes. Then I'll try to create one more triangle. I try to create one more triangle T2 equal to what is that? Triangle T2 equal to triangle. So will it create one more triangle or not? Yes. Another triangle object is created. One more triangle object is created. And what is that? Another triangle object T2. So what will happen on creation of object? It will call the constructor. What will happen on creation of object? It will call the constructor. And this constructor is referring to which object? T2 object. And self is referring to T2 object. And inside the T2, is it any base is there? No. It will create the base. And what is the initial base of this triangle 2? 0.0. What is the initial height of this triangle 2? 0.0. But the data which is there inside this triangle 2, is it a private or not? Yes. Getting on. So using this class, I build how many objects here? Two objects. One is a T1 and one more is what? T2. Now I want to assign values to the triangle 1. Can I assign values to the triangle 1 directly? No, because this base and height of the triangle 1 is what? Private. Can I assign the value directly to the triangle 2? No, because base and height of the triangle is what? Private. So when it is private, then how you access it? With the help of methods. You provide one method. You provide one method. What is the method I provided? Read. See, method name can be anything. But is it this method is a public or private? Public. If I put double underscore, now this method also becomes what? Private. Is it able to call this read method? No. Okay, it means everything is what here? Hidden. Methods are hidden and data is also hidden. In that case, is it my object becomes usable or not usable? Not usable. So there should be certain things which has to be visible where? Outside, so that I can operate that particular object. If everything is hidden, I cannot able to what? Operate. There should be certain things which has to be visible where? Outside. But generally, which one you make visible outside? Methods. So you are making this method is visible where? Outside. If you want to read the values of triangle, you just read it with the help of which method? Read method. And read method, okay, self dot what is that? Base. Self dot base equal to float of input what? Enter what is that? Base. So I try to read the base of the triangle. Okay, now self dot height equal to float of input what is that? Enter what is that? Height. So I try to read how many values here? Two values. Okay, now I want to read the values of triangle 1. Then what will I do? T1 dot read. T1 dot read. I call which method now? A read method. And read method read the values of which object? Triangle 1. Read method read the values of which object? Triangle 1. Because self is binding with which object? Triangle 1. So you try to input the base and that value is assigned to base of which object? Triangle 1. If I want to read the details of triangle 2, how can I read the details of triangle 2? By using T2 dot read. Now I want to find out the area. I want to find out the area. Can I say directly? Can I access some A1 equal to T1 dot? Can I access T1 dot directly base into T1 dot high? Can I access directly? Can I say T1 dot base into T1 dot what is that? Height into 0.5? No, because base and height are what? Private. Base and height are what? Private. Can you access the private outside the class? No. Can you access the privates by the non-members? No. If you are trying to write like this, is it gives an error or not? Yes. See here. If I'm trying to execute this, if I try to execute this, I try to input the values of base, input the values of height, input the value of base, and input the value of which one? Height. But after that, it is given one error. What is that error is given? Attribute error. A triangle object has no attribute called which one? Base. But is there no attribute of base here? No, there is an attribute called which one? Base. But is it accessible by the non-members? No. Then how can I find out the area? Then I provide one public method here. What is the method I provided? Find area. So this method will find out the area. Self dot what is that? Base into self dot what is it? Another one, height into what is that? 0.5. Then return what is that? Area. If I want to find out the area, what will I do? I'll say simply T1 dot what is that? Find area. and print A1. I want to find out the area of triangle 2, T2 dot. What is it? Another one, find area. So I try to print the value of A2. So see here, this is object level method. This is object level method. And this is also which method? Object level method. Object level methods are used to perform which operation? Object level operation. You have not written any method. Are you write any method for printing? No, no. Are you write any method for printing? Are you provided any method for printing, Ravindra? Are you provided any method for printing? Are you provided any method? No, provide it. If you provide a method, you can print it. You have not provided, right? You have not provided any method for printing, then how do you print it? Can you print it base and height directly? Na? Can you print base and height directly? No, because base and height is what here? Private. Is it base and height is a private or not? Yes. You cannot print it directly. Base and height are private. You cannot print it directly. What I see? What you see here? This is object level method. So you can call this object level method or same thing. You can call it as which one? Instance method. And always instance methods access which variables? Instance variables. Instance method, that is what? What is encapsulation? Binding data. Binding data with what is that? Methods. You are binding the data with methods inside one container or within one entity. What is this entity here? Class. So this data is operated using these methods. But this is which data here? Instance variables. And these methods are which methods? Instance methods. Instance methods access which data? Instance variables. And instance variables bind with what here? Self. Inside the class, instance variables bind with what here? Self. Inside the class, instance variables are bind with what again? Self. Okay, instance variables are bind with the self here. Self dot base and self dot what is that? Height. So is it this base and height are called instance variables or not? Yes. So you have to understand this. Okay. I'll tell you one more example. So you need to know how to build a class. Know how to build a class, how to build your own data type, how to build your own data type, right? So enter the base of the triangle and height of the triangle 101 and 1.0. I can say 0.78 and 0.55. So that is area of triangle 1. First one is area of triangle 1 and second one is area of what? Triangle 2. Yeah, this here. Now write a, yeah, this is one more simple example of developing your own class. Okay, write a program. Suppose simple, write a program to read the details of, how many players and players and display. Okay, I want to read the details of how many players and players. So after reading the details of n players, I want to display. After reading, I want to display it. Tell me, is it any data type called player? Is it any data type called player is there or not there? Not there. Then what do you do it? You build one data type called which one? Player. Okay, what is the name of the data type? Player. Okay, player is a data type. Player is a class or player is what here? Data type. Now for each player, you want to, each player is having how many values? You should know it. So I'm defining that variables as an object level variables. So each player is having what? Name. Player is having a name and player is having what? Score. So how many values each player is having? 2 values. Yes, I created how many object level variables? 2. Object level variables are instance variables. This is object level variables or instance variables. Okay, yes. But is it this data? Is it this data is a private or not? Yes. Then if the data is a private, then how you access it? You access it by using which methods? Public methods. So read, okay, read player. What is the name of this method? Read player. And this read player is the object level method, or it is also called as which method? Instance method. Using this method, are you reading this data or not? Yes. So object level data is accessed by using which methods? Object level methods. Using this data, I try to input the value of name. I try to input the value of what? Score. I try to input how many values? 2 values. One is a name and one more is a score. Self dot, I'm saying name. Input. Input what I'm saying, enter name. Input enter name, right? And self dot. What should I input? Score. I'm trying to say input enter. What should I enter here? Score. Getting on it. Then after that, I need to display this name as well as what? Score. So to display this name and score, I write one method. What is that? Print. Print what is that? Player. This method is again object level method, or it is also which method? Instance method. So where you are trying to print? What you are trying to print? You are trying to print a self dot name of the player and backslash t. You are also printing which one? Score of the player. You are trying to print how many values here? 2 values. The first value is a name and second value is what? Score. First value is a name and second value is a score. So how many values are you printing here? 2 values. So what is my data type here? Player. But I should read the details of how many players? N players. So I should create how many objects here? N objects. I should create how many objects here? N objects. Then what I'm doing is, first I'm reading n value. I'm reading n value. N equal to integer of input. Input enter to read the details of how many players. You want to read the details of how many players. So I read the value of this integer input, enter how many players. You want to read the details of how many players. You want to read the details of how many players, right? That is n value. And after that, I'm saying player list. This is a list here. So we are trying to put all these players into one list. So I created one empty list or not? Yes. Inside this list, you should add which objects? Inside this list, you should add which objects? Player objects. Inside this list, you should add which objects? Player objects. You should read how many players for IN. Range of what is that? N. This for loop is executed how many times? N times. Then each time I should create one player object or not? Yes. I created player object and then read the details of that player. Read the details of that player, and you are adding this player into which list? Player list. Dot append which one? P. So previously in list we used to add integers, floats, but this time we added which object? Player object. This time we added which object? Player object. By saying player list dot what is that? Append. Player list dot append. You are trying to append which object here? Player object. You are saying player list dot append. You are trying to append which object? Player object into the list. You are trying to append player object into what here? List. So that is what you are doing. Player list dot append. What you are trying to append into the player list? Player object you are trying to append into what? Player list. So then after this, what I have to do? I have to read the details or not? Yes. From list, each time you are reading one player. From list you are reading each time one player. What a list is having now? This is a list, right? Suppose I read the details of how many players? 3 players. Assume that. I read how many player details? 3 players details. Then it's created how many objects? 3 objects. Now this is player 1 and this is player 2. There is a player 1, there is a player 2, and there is what? Player 3. This is pointing to the player 1. This is pointing to the player 2. And this is pointing to what here? Player 3. So how many objects I created here? 3 objects. And each object is having how many values? 2 values. What is the first value? Name. And what is the second value? Score. What is the first value? Name. And what is the second value? Score. What is the first value? Name. What is the second value? Score. But the data which is there inside this object is what? Private. Is it this data is a private or not? Yes. Ring on or now this data is a private. Now what is the first value? This is at 0, this is at 1, and this is at what? 2. Each time you are reading one player or not? Yes. So this first player object is assigned to what? P. Then how can I print the details of this player? I can print the details of this player by using which method? Print player. P dot. What is that I said? Print player. So it will read the first player object and assign to what? P. And you are printing the details of that player by calling which method? Print player. And read again one more player object and assign to what? P. And how you are printing the details of that player? By using P dot. What is that? Print player. So again it will read one more player object, and I want to print the details of this player object. How can I print the details of this player object? By using a method called what? Print player. It means each time you are reading one player object, each time you are reading one player object from where? List. And then you are performing which operation? Printing. Now you have to understand. You have to understand how you build your own data types and store the data and perform operations here. So enter how many players? 2 players. I just enter. This is player 1. Okay, now this is what here? Player 2. You can see this is the name of the first player and the score, and this is the name of the second player, and this is what? Score. But here, is it player is a predefined data type or user defined? User defined. Player is predefined or user defined? User defined data type. And this data type allocates memory for how many values? Two values. And you are reading these two values using which method? Read player. You are printing these two values using which method? Print player. Instance variables are operated by using which methods? Instance methods. Instance variables are bind with what here? Self. Instance variables are bind with the self. You have to understand this. So these are examples to understand how to write a class and how to create the object and how to write the methods to perform, how to write the methods to perform operations. See, all these are examples related with instance variables and instance. All these are the examples for instance variables and instance methods. These are the examples for instance variables and instance methods. Instance variables and instance methods. Yes. Now you have to understand how you are trying to do all these things here. Now let us see one more example and then we'll talk about class level variables and methods. Okay. One more example I'm telling. See, this many number of examples I'm saying. For example, if you are working with suppose you are developing a banking application. Okay, suppose you are developing which application? A banking application where I want to represent whose data? Customer data. I want to represent whose data here? Customer data. What is the name of the class? Account. So account is a class which I'm using to represent whose data? Customer data. Alright. I said no, protected is used in inheritance. I said once we go for inheritance, I'll tell you what is the use of protected. If it is one class, you don't find any difference in protected and public. In inheritance, we'll talk about protected. Okay. So every customer is having what? Customer is having what? Account number. Can I send that account number at the time of creating object or not? Yes. By writing constructor with arguments. Okay, then can I send the name as well as balance or not? Yes. I'll say self dot. Self dot, what is that? Name and self dot. What is it here? Balance. So it means whenever I create a account, I need to create an account by giving account number. I have to give the account number, name, and balance or not? Yes. So what will happen in this case? It will try to create. What will happen in this case? It will try to create. Try to create which object? Here try to create which object? Account object. So what is the name of this object here? Account 1. See here, what is the name of this object? Account 1. What is the name of this object? Account 1. So what will happen on creation of object? Whenever you create the object, your object is created by calling which one? Constructor. And this constructor receive how many values here? Account number. This constructor receive what is that another value? Name. This constructor receive what is that another value? Balance. Then after that, this account number is assigned to which variable? Account number. Is it this is which variable? Object level variable. So it will create what it create? Account number. What is the value of account number? 101. It will create name. What is the value of name? Naresh. It will create. What is it? Another one? Balance. What is the balance here? 9,000. So account 1 is created with these details. But the data which is there inside this account 1, is it a private or not? Yes. Now, what I want to do is on this account, I want to perform certain operations. I want to perform operation like deposit. I want to perform an operation called which one? Deposit. Is it any operation called deposit in account? No. Then what do you do it? Right. One method called which one? Deposit. Deposit will receive the amount. It will receive the amount. And this amount is added to the balance or not? Yes. Self dot balance equal to self dot balance plus what is that? Amount. Now suppose I want to deposit. What will I do? I'll say account 1 dot. What I'm saying? Deposit. I want to deposit some thousand. So what will happen in this case? It will call the deposit method. And this deposit method receive the transaction amount. And this amount is added to the balance or not? Yes. Now this time the balance becomes what? 10,000. Suppose I want to withdraw. I want to withdraw. Is it any method called withdraw here? No. If I want to withdraw, I'll say definition. What is the name of this here? Withdraw. And this withdraw receive the amount which has to be withdraw. This amount which has to be withdraw, right? Before withdrawing, you are checking balance. If the transaction amount is greater than, if the amount what you are withdrawing is greater than which one? Balance, then you are displaying the message. What is it? Insufficient balance. Insufficient balance. Otherwise, you'll try to update the balance or not. Yes. Self dot balance equal to balance minus transaction amount. So how many operations you are doing on the account? Two operations. One is deposit and one more is a one is a deposit. One is a deposit and one more is which one? Withdraw. Now I want to print the details of customer. Then I'll write one method here. What is that? Print account. This will print the details of which one? Account. What are the details of account? I want to print account number. Self dot. Self dot. What is that? Account number. Self dot account number. This will print the account number. Format. You are trying to print what here? Customer name. Self dot. What is that? Customer name. Print format. What you are trying to print here? Balance. Self dot. What you are printing? Balance. See, you should know what operations you should do or write in a class. So what operations you want to perform on the object, that operations you write within the class. Which operations you want to perform, that operations you are writing inside the class. Okay, the operations which you want to perform, that operations you are writing in the class. Now account is the object and you are performing certain operations. Account is the object, you are performing certain operations, right? Account is the object and you are performing certain operations. What operations you are performing, like deposit? Okay, right? So without knowing what operations you want to do it, I see, without knowing what operations you want to do it, you cannot do anything, right? Without knowing what operations you are performing, you cannot do anything. Okay, right? Yes. Name. Name. Actually, it is a name, right? Not C name. Yes. It is a name, but not C name, right? Okay. So I want to print the details of account. So after creating, I print the details of what account. After that, I print the details of account. Now you can see the account number 101. Customer name is what? Nourish. And balance is what here? 9,000. So this is the account number and this is the name and this is what here? Balance. Account number, name and balance. Right? I want to do deposit. I'll say account one dot. What is that? Deposit. Some 2,000. After deposit 2,000, I want to print the details of account. I'll say account one dot print account. Now after deposit, what are the details? 11,000. After deposit, I want to withdraw. I'll say account one dot withdraw. I want to withdraw 1,000. And after withdrawing, I try to print the details of what here? Account. After withdraw, what is the details of this account? What you have done? Added self dot balance. Self dot is missing, right? So now you can see 11,000 minus 1,000 is what here? 10,000, right? Yes. So always the instance variables are operated by using which methods here? Instance methods. You can build your own data types or you can build your own data structures. You can build your own data types or you can build your own data structures with the help of which one? Class. You can build your own data types or you can build your own data structures with the help of the account number, customer name and balance. Account number, customer name, balance. So because you print the same details how many times? After deposit, before deposit and after withdrawal, right? Now you can build your own data structures as I said. For example, yeah, this is one more example. See how many examples I'm telling you related with the class and object. What is the name of the class here? Stack. Is it stack is my own data type or not? Yes. But is it Python provided any data type called stack? No. Python doesn't provide any data type called which one? Stack. So when existing data types doesn't fulfill your requirement, will you build your own data types or not? Yes. You build your own data types. Okay, you build your own data type. Now, is it this? This is your own data type or not? Yes. This is your own data type. What is the name of the data type here? Stack. Yeah, what stack is having? How many operations stack is having? Tell me how many operations stack is having? How many operations? What is the first operation? Push. Is it pushes for adding element or not? Yes. And one more operation, the stack is having which one? Pop. Is it pop is removing element and returning that element or not? Yes. But where you are adding this value and where you are removing element from? Stack. But how you implement this stack? Whenever you say push, it should push the element within the stack. where you push the element within the stack. I try to implement the stack. I try to implement the stack using which one? I try to implement the stack using which one? List. Here stack, whenever you create a stack, your stack is created with a list or not? Yes. Whenever you say push, it will add the element into what? List. Whenever you say pop, it will remove the element from what? List. Whenever you say push, it should add the element into what? List. Whenever you say pop, it should remove the element from what? List. This is how you build a stack. You complete this code. There is a class. What is that? Another one? Queue. Now stack uses last in, first out, but queue uses first in, first out. So queue perform how many operations? Two operations. One is add. Two operation. One is add. Now first in, first out, add element. Second one is, what is the second one? Queue perform remove. What is the first method here? Add. What is the second method here? Remove. First method is add. Second method is remove. There is a method. What is the method here? Init. How you implement the queue? How you implement the queue? You implement the queue. You implement the queue using which one? List. Now, whenever you say add, it will add that element into what? Queue. But queue is represented as what here? List. Stack is represented as what here? List. Queue is represented as a list. When you say add, it should add the element into the queue. When I say remove, it should remove the element from what? Queue. When I say push, it should add the element into what? Stack. When I say pop, it should remove the element from what? Stack. So you write the code inside this. I've given only structure, right? You have to write the code. You have to write the code. Fill the code. Fill the code. You have to fill the code here. You have to fill the code inside a push and pop, and inside the queue add code you have to write. You have to write the remove code. Fill the code stub. Okay, you have to write the code inside. What should I write inside the push, and what logic you should write inside what? Pop. Because push means it should add the value inside what? List. Pop means you should remove the value from which one? List. In the same way, when you work with the queue, if you say add, it will add the element inside what? Queue. If you say remove, it will remove the element from what? Queue. It will add the element to the queue. If you say remove, it will remove the element from what? Queue. Getting or not? Okay. Let us see this, like more on this, like how to work with this, but not today, because today I'll just stop here and tomorrow we'll continue this. But please try to fill this code stuff, and tomorrow I'll tell you how to work with the class level methods. Tomorrow I'll tell you how to work with the class level variables and methods, right? So today we'll stop it here, and tomorrow we'll